Good morning, dear children, and welcome to the class. This is class 6th, subject Social Science, chapter number 9 of History, and the name of the chapter is Vital Villages and Thriving Towns. So, we are going to start the new chapter of History, chapter number 9 today, and we'll discuss about the developments those took place there in the villages and towns during the particular time period 2500 years ago and near about. So we'll discuss about the people there living there in the villages and what were they doing, and the people in the towns also, as well as we will be taking the development that was done there in the agriculture due to the use of iron tools and irrigation. So let's start the today's lecture. It will be our lecture number 1 of this chapter. So let's see the topics that we will be covering today. The topics to be discussed in today's lecture are introduction of the chapter, iron tools and agriculture, how the different tools the farmers they started using in agriculture so that they could increase the production of the crops. Irrigation after then they also started using different means of irrigation so that they could increase the again the production of the crops. Number 4, people in villages. There are two categories we will be doing the northern part of India and the Tamil region, the south part of India. The different people of the villages we will discuss, those who are there in northern part of India and Tamil region. Number 5, Tamil composition. Here we'll discuss little about the literature that was there in Tamil, and finding out about cities. What were the different ways for learning about the cities? And at last, we will be taking homework on the basis of different topics discussed there in the lecture. So let's start with the topics. Introduction. In the Indian subcontinent, use of iron began about 3000 years ago. It was developed around 2500 years ago. Axes and iron plowshare became popular. They were used in agriculture. Plowshare increased production, so there was development in villages also. As we talked in the previous chapters, different chapters, that how the development that was coming there in the societies because of the development there in Janpadas, Mahajanpadas. Here we are talking about the development that occurred there in the villages also, and the reason that the use of iron tools that approximately that was started, that began near about 3000 years ago, but the development that was done there, the use was started near about 3000 years ago, but it was developed there near about 2500 years ago. And different tools the farmers in villages they started using in the agriculture, especially if we talk about the plowshare. We have discussed about it in chapter number 6 also. There we discussed that on the place of wooden plowshare they started using iron plowshare, and due to that they had increased the production of their crops. So this we will be doing in this chapter. Number 1, iron tools and agriculture. So as we discussed that different iron tools they started, as we have done in chapter number 6, that use of iron plowshare and transplantation method of growing paddy crop increase the production of the farmers. In chapter 6, we discussed that on the place of wooden plowshare, the farmers started using iron plowshare. The one reason due to which they had increased their production. The second is transplantation method of growing paddy crop. In the starting, they were just scattering the seeds there on the field, but later on, they started using the transplantation method, in which first of all they were preparing the sampling of the paddy crop, then they were growing the crop itself. So, in this way, they had increased the production. Evidences of iron tools were found during this particular time. They were sickle, tongs, axe, etc. Along with it, irrigation was also started. Canals, tanks, and artificial lakes were built for irrigation. These were different methods that they were using for irrigation their crops. These different things that they were using: canals like the river, wells, tanks, artificial lakes. So these were the things, different mediums that they were using for irrigation. And due to the iron tool and irrigation, definitely they had increased the production of the crop. Now, how the different rulers, they were also giving support for the irrigation methods. They were helping the farmers. So why they were helping for that to the farmers? Construction of irrigation. In that construction, how these rulers, they were giving the help, they were giving the different plans to the farmers, so that they can increase the production. If production would be more, so they would be getting the more taxes. This was the reason that they were helping in construction of the irrigation. Like, kings needed money for armies, palaces, forts. They required the money for making the large armies, for building palaces, for building the forts, and for that they demanded taxes from farmers. And farmers, they were not in that condition that they themselves could build these mediums of irrigation. So what was done? Farmers had to increase production to pay taxes. That was really required, because the same production, they were not able to pay the taxes that was taken by the rulers or the kings. This was possible with irrigation, because if they could use the irrigation, they would be able to increase the production. Kings provided money and plan for irrigation. For the irrigation work that was done, whether it was canal, tank, well, for building all these things, the people, they required money, they required plan also. So kings, they were providing money and plans for irrigation work, and that money and plan, that was used by the farmers. So the labor was given by the farmers itself, because both were needing that was the need of the time. The kings, they needed the money for army, and that's why they needed more taxes, and the farmers, for giving taxes, they also needed the more production. Production and revenue increased. Due to the use of irrigation, the production of the crops, that was increased, and the revenue, the money that they were getting and the rulers were getting, that was also increased. Farmers also benefited because crop production was more. So both they were getting the benefits from the construction of irrigation. This is all about the irrigation, how it was used by the farmers, and how the kings or the rulers, they were helping the farmers for getting more and more taxes. Next is people in villages. As here we are going to talk about the different people living there in villages. And in starting, I told you that two parts are divided, the people in northern part of India and people in Tamil region. So let's discuss about those people. People in southern parts of subcontinents, or you can say the people in Tamil region of India. Large land owners were there, those were known as Velalar. The large land owners means the farmers, those were the owners of large land. They were known as Velalars. Ordinary plowmen were known as Ujhavar in Tamil region or in southern part of subcontinent. Number 3, landless laborers in the Tamil region were known as Kadaisiyar. Landless laborers means the people those were not having their own land, they were just working as a labor on others' land. So landless laborers in Tamil region were known as Kadaisiyar. Number 4, slaves were known as Adimai. So these were different type of people living in the southern part of the subcontinent in villages. Or here if it is written people in Tamil region, that is also correct. So large landowners were Velalars, ordinary plowmen were Ujhavar, landless laborers were Kadaisiyar, and slaves were known as Adimai. Clear? Now the people in northern part of India. The northern parts of subcontinent. The village headman was known as the Gram Bhojka. Village head means the person who owned a very large land mass, we can say. The person who was head of the village also, he was the known as Gram Bhojka. The very powerful person of the village was known as Gram Bhojka, who was having the different powers that we'll discuss about. Number 2, independent farmers. Independent farmers, those were small land owners. They were known as Grihapatis in northern part of India. Number 3, there were dasas and karmakaras who did not have land. So there were 3 categories that were found in the northern parts of subcontinents. The largest land owner or the village headman, that was known as Gram Bhojka, who was having the different powers with him, that we are going to discuss. Independent farmers or the small land owners, they were known as Grihapatis. And dasas and karmakaras, they were known as karmakaras or kamakaras both. They did not have their own land, they were just working on the lands of others for getting their livelihood, for getting income. So because they were not having their own land, so definitely that was the reason that they were working on others' land. Now let's discuss about Gram Bhojka in detail. Gram Bhojka was very powerful person and his post was hereditary. Means the post, why we call it hereditary, because that post was there with the same family members, one after another. Hereditary system means when the same family members, they are holding the same post one after another. Means if father is having, then his son will be having. So that post was hereditary, and he was the powerful person of the village. Next, he used to collect taxes from the villagers. The first work, that the function of that Gram Bhojka, it was he was collecting the taxes from the villagers. Number 2, he had slaves and hired workers to cultivate his land. He was having different workers, those were working on his land as laborers. Number 3, he also functioned like a judge and a policeman. There, as he was powerful person of the village, So he was taking decision for on different issues, and he was even working as a policeman because he was giving the punishment to the people also. So this we can write the different functions of gram bhojka like that. He used to collect the taxes. He was having different slaves or workers to cultivate his land. He was functioning like a judge. He was functioning like a policeman also. And in most of the villages there were different other craft persons. These we had talked about the people those were involved there in agriculture basically. Along with it, different craft persons were also there, like blacksmith, porter, carpenter, weavers. So these were different other people those were living in the village area. So I hope that this part is clear to you, that who were living there in the villages. Now next is Tamil composition. Here we'll discuss about something that is the Tamil literature. What was the written work there in Tamil during that particular time? Some of the earliest works in Tamil are known as Sangam literature. These texts were composed around 2300 years ago. So here we are talking about the literature that was composed there in Tamil part of India. That texts these were composed near about 2300 years ago, and that composition, that literature was famous as Sangam literature. Now we'll discuss why the Sangam name was given. These texts are called Sangam as they were composed in assemblies known as Sangam. Means the people there in the different assemblies were found in southern part of the subcontinent or Tamil region, and those assemblies were known as Sangams. As they composed that literature, so the name was given the Sangam literature. So there these Sangam poets, they held the different meetings or assemblies in the city of Madurai. They are in South India. So this is all about the Sangam literature. How we'll write the meaning and of Sangam literature. Some of the earliest work in Tamil that was known as Sangam literature. When it was composed near about 2300 years ago. And why the Sangam name was given? Because it was composed by the assembly. That assembly was known as Sangam. That's why the name given Sangam literature. The next one is ways of finding out about early cities. Till here we talked about different people in villages and the development there in the villages. Now how we could know about the different cities. There we'll discuss different ways. Collection of short stories, travelers and sailors and archaeologists. These were different ways for finding about the earlier cities. How we are able to find about the earlier city through these different ways. Just we'll see here. Collection of short stories. First one, Jatakas. Jatak Kathai, I think you might have heard about that. The Jatakas were stories that were probably composed by ordinary people. Means they were made by the ordinary people, but later on they were written by Buddhist monks. As the people, they were not able to write. So the Jatakas, how we'll define, these were the small stories basically. Those were probably composed by ordinary people and later on written by Buddhist monk. Here one of the example is also given there in your book, one story, the short story, in which it is shown that one person was there who was doing the business there with the dead rats, and once he got the opportunity, when there was storm in the kingdom, and the litter was there everywhere, and the gardener of that particular garden there in the palace, he was worried for cleaning that area, that garden. Then he offered that if I would be able to clean your garden, so will you give me the that complete litter, means branches or leaves, to me? Then he agreed, and that person then called different children there and asked them to collect that litter, and in return he gave them different sweets. And then that material he sold to the potters, because potters they needed fuel for baking their pots. Then after he got the pots from them, and he used those pots for giving water. And after then he asked them, whenever I will be needing, I will get your help, the grass cutters. And then grass cutters, they gave them the once when there were different merchants coming there in the city, different traders were coming, and they were having different horses with them, and he asked the grass cutters that you would not be able to give or sell your grass till I would finish mine. Okay, then in this story, that grass that he got, the bundles of grass from the grass cutters, he sold them to the traders and received money from them, the coins from them, and in this way he got he became the rich person. You can read that story that is given there in your book itself. Next is, in many cities archaeologists rows of pots. Archaeologists found, here found will come, found rows of pots. Those were arranged one on top of other. These were known as ring wells. So this one example that is given about the archaeologists, what they found there. They found in different cities the rows of pots, and these pots were arranged one on the top of other, and they were known as ring wells. And what was the use of these ring wells? They were used for for collecting the dumps or the garbage, and they were also, some of the areas they were used as toilets also. So the ring wells, they were used as toilets, and that they were used as drains and garbage dumps also. This the example of archaeologists that they found about the different earlier cities. Next is about travelers and sailors who visited different cities, had also given detailed account about the different cities, as what is the work of travelers and sailors. Definitely they move from one place to another. So earlier also the travelers and sailors, they visited different places, and they had given the detailed account of those places. Here one example is given in your book. An unknown Greek sailor described about Bharuch. Bharuch there, and in Greek language it is known as Barigaza. Bharuch, the place there in Gujarat in India. And if we talk about its Greek version, it is known as Barigaza. The gulf is very narrow at Barigaza. Ships had to be steered in and skillful by the skillful and experienced local fishermen who were employed by the kings. Means that the area that was very narrow, and the skilled and experienced local fishermen, they were hired, they were employed by the king for the ships. Those were, they were there on the Barigaza, and there the different items or the goods, they were loaded or unloaded there at Barigaza. Then what was the import done there at Barigaza? Import means the material that was coming from the other lands at Barigaza or at Bharuch. Import into Beri Gaja were wine, copper, tin, cloth, etc. So if any question is asked what type of import there was done there at Beri Gaja, so these were the items in which the import was done. Now if we talk about export, means the items those were sent to other lands. They included carnelian, that is one type of stone, silk, perfume, etc. Gifts were brought by merchants for the kings. That obviously, as we talked about, they are in previous chapter also, tax and tribute. So different people, they were giving the gifts to the kings or the rulers. So this is all about the different travelers and sellers. We get the information from them also about different cities. So what are the different ways for finding about the cities? That the collection of stories we have done, in which we have taken Jatakas, and the second one we have taken archaeologists. There also we talked about how archaeologists found different items there in different cities. We talked about the ring wells and ceramic items also. Ceramic means chini mitti. So different items, the goods they found in different cities. Then we talked about travelers and sellers. Here we have taken one example of the Greek seller also, who described about Bharuch, that too in Greek language it is known as Beri Gaja. Now, archaeologists have found the evidences of coins also. These earliest coins were punch marked coins. They were made up of two metals, silver and copper. The archaeologists, they found the evidences of coins, means the exchange was done in the coins. Here they got the evidences that people were exchanging the things with the help of coins, and these coins basically they were punch marked coins, on which the designs they were made on the coins, and they were made up of silver and copper. Designs were punch, that's why they were known as the punch marked coins, or two metals were used, silver and copper. This is all about the coins that the archaeologists got. Now it's time for homework. As we discussed the topics in today's lecture, they were, firstly we have taken the different people in villages. We talked about the agriculture, the production that was increased due to the iron tools and irrigation, and then we talked about the ways of finding about the cities. So now on the basis of these, the questions that you will attempt. Question number 1, who was Gram Bhojka? What do you think he was? Why do you think he was powerful? So firstly we will give answer who was he, then why he was powerful. What are Jatakas? Number 3, who were Velalar? Number 4, enlist the ways of finding out about early cities. Here only ways you will tell, no need to give the examples. What did irrigation work include? The things that were included there in irrigation, like tanks or different we discussed about, that you will write in this question. So this is the homework. Now we will discuss the homework solution of chapter number 6, Geography, lecture 2, that was not given to you. Question number 1, it was, what is the difference between a mountain and a plateau? Mountain, plateau. Number 1, a mountain is a naturally elevated surface with small summit and broad base. If we talk about plateau, it is an elevated flat surface, means on the top it is flat. Number 2, it is storehouse of water, and in plateaus it is storehouse of mineral. It is higher than plateau, and in plateau it is lower than a mountain. Number 4, it looks like a triangular and it is known as tableland. For example, the Himalaya, and in plateau, the Deccan Plateau, the Tibet Plateau. Himalayas, the Alps. The example they are in mountains. Question number 2 was, how are plains formed? Formation of plains. Number 1, rivers flow down from mountain slope and erode them. First thing. Second, they carry the eroded material like sand and silt forward with them. They deposit their loads of silt and sand along their courses and in their valleys. And after then, these deposits they turn into the plains. Why are river plains thickly populated? Number 1, plains are fertile so that they can sustain the large population easily. Means of transport are easy to be constructed due to the flat land. Number 3, ideal for human habitation. Along with, you can write more points that they are the good source of the employment. Means the better opportunities of employment that they are in the plain area due to the flat land. The question number 4, it was, how are plateaus useful to us? Plateaus are useful to us as plateaus are rich in mineral resources. Plateaus have several waterfalls, that is ideal sites for generating the hydroelectricity. Number 3, lava plateaus are rich in black soil, that is ideal for cultivation. So this is all about the today's lecture. I hope that topics discussed in today's lecture are understood by you. Thank you and have a nice day.